Terrika Foster-Brasby. We were here just, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about potential free agent moves and changes and what free agency would be this year in the WNBA. And it started. It started over the weekend. We had a blockbuster trade that involved Kelsey Plum and Jewel Lloyd. And then yesterday, the news dropped, the big news for a team that you cover. Alyssa Thomas is being traded to the Phoenix Mercury. Sorry, not to say Phoenix Sun. To the Sun.
It's a lot going on. Yes.
Phoenix Mercury. Wow. 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 Terrika. We knew it was possible. We suspected it might be coming, but to still see it actually happen was like, wow. Alyssa Thomas moving on. She's leaving Connecticut. What are your initial instant reaction, Terrika?
I think instantly I was just like, well, yeah. I mean, honestly, it felt like the writing was on the wall in terms of if you listen to Alyssa over the last few months. I would even say going back to right before the Olympic break. If you just listened and you paid attention, and we talked about it, it felt like one of the things that was going to be and had become a priority for her was training facilities and resources. It felt like, as someone who has battled back from multiple injuries, as someone who has made comments in the past about Connecticut's lack of resources and facilities in that manner. And then the news that came out towards the end of the season last year, with Connecticut not being able to fully execute a practice because of the inability to access their practice court. It honestly just felt like the writing was on the wall, right? So I wasn't quite surprised that she decided to move on. I think I was a little surprised that it was Phoenix, but also I think I was a little surprised that it was Phoenix, but really not really, because there had been rumors, right? There had been rumors about a connection to Phoenix for DeWanna Bonner. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, although they don't have to be a package deal, it's possible that they might be. So if DeWanna has interest in seeking out a return to Phoenix, it's very possible that Alyssa Thomas could be interested in Phoenix as well. But it's always about the semantics. It's about, how do we make the money move? Who do you get in return? I also think losing Ty Harris is going to be interesting as well. Now, you do get Natasha Cloud and Beck Allen in that offset of that trade. So Beck Allen, she's been in Connecticut before, so she's familiar with what it means to play here, although the system will look different because it's a new coach, but she's familiar with the Connecticut front office. Natasha Cloud has not played here. In fact, the last time she played here, and it was meaningful, was an actual game in which she was trying to win a national title in 2019, right? And so I feel like Connecticut fans are going to be receptive because they love who they love. And she will bring a more experienced and a more veteran presence at the point guard position than Ty Harris was able to do over the last couple of years. Well, over the last year, excuse me. But I find it interesting now that this core group, Natalie, it appears to be DeJounte Carrington, Marina Mabrey, Beck Allen, Natasha Cloud, and Brianna Jones.
Yeah, well, what's interesting to me about what you said is a number of things. And that just brings me to the question, what's next for the Connecticut Sun, right? Because you talked about the fact that, who's left there. We don't know what's going to happen with Bree Jones, but she's a free agent. She's unrestricted, right? Is that correct?
She was cored, if I'm not mistaken.
She was cored. She's one of the players that were cored. Okay, so oh yeah, that's right. Bree and both Alyssa were cored, but obviously Alyssa is moving on. We don't know if Bree will be traded, right?
Yeah.
DeJounte Carrington is a restricted free agent, so we don't know if anything will happen with her. Poor old Marina Mabrey, right, just came to the team with the hopes of joining a team that had the chance to contend and looking for more stability. And now that's a little, up in the air. And then you also talked about Ty Harris, who's going to be going to Phoenix as part of that trade. And,
Yep.
because when the news first broke, it was sort of just like, okay, Alyssa Thomas is going to
Yep.
Phoenix. But then the news of like what else was a part of that trade started to come out. So we learned that Ty Harris is going, which is obviously a great pickup for Phoenix.
Phoenix, yep.
But then we also learned coming back in return, like you mentioned, Natasha Cloud as one of the players who was coming, and also Rebecca Allen. And so that was just like a lot to unpack. And I think a lot of people were really shocked to hear about Natasha Cloud being one of the, players that would be coming back, because she just signed with Phoenix last year in free agency. She was in the video when they rolled out like their new facility, talking about it. Seemed like
Yep.
Tosh really wanted to be in Phoenix for a long time. And so just so many ramifications to this trade. I didn't even talk about DeWanna Bonner. So like when you said at the beginning that you were surprised but not really surprised, and I know we talked about this when you were on with me, we were talking about free agency a couple of weeks ago, because everyone sort of thinks and believes like they are going to be a package deal, Alyssa and DeWanna. You were saying like you weren't sure. We still
Sure.
don't know what DeWanna Bonner's doing,
Yep.
but she is an unrestricted free agent.
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix seems to make perfect sense in
Yeah.
terms of she was there before, she knows it well. And
Mm-hmm.
also they were always one of the destinations that had the money and cap space to take on an Alyssa Thomas and a DeWanna.
They have the money to, with moving Cloud and no longer having BG, and then if DT retires, they would have enough money to be able to give Alyssa Thomas a supermax. If they wanted to bring in DeWanna Bonner, they could do that. They would even have enough money to, if for whatever reason they decided to go after Satu Sapoli, they would have enough money for that. Like Matt Ishbia has the money. They have the cap space. So that's like the least of their concerns. And they've got Kavia Copper locked up. So it's like...
So Phoenix is going to be interesting, and we're not going to focus on Phoenix right now, guys. There's a lot of free agency news. I will hit it all today, but like you're right. Phoenix could potentially form its own super team. Like we have to see everything that's going to happen in Phoenix. But I'm curious about Connecticut. What is this, in your opinion, signaling? Are they going to try to like do a quick rebuild on the fly and add in something else? Are they going to go full rebuild and maybe trade some of these other pieces? Does it depend on what DeWanna Bonner does? I mean, do you have any sense of like what's happening right now?
Well, I definitely think it's going to depend a lot on what DeWanna Bonner does, but I also don't have a very good feeling that DeWanna Bonner is going to stay. I don't remember if this was something that was just a rumor, but there were like talks, rumors, and conversations at the beginning of this past off season that DeWanna Bonner was like selling her house and selling her property and like moving, not renewing her lease or something to that effect. Again, don't know the accuracy, so don't quote me. This is just a rumor that was out and about, that it appeared that she was prepared to move on from Connecticut, as in the state, the city, the residents. And so that would give one the idea that if you're not looking to re-sign your lease on wherever it is that you're staying, you probably don't plan to be here much longer. So that was something to consider. I have always felt, without any conversation, just my gut feeling and my intuition has always been that DeWanna Bonner is nearing the end of her career. That she is getting to the point where maybe she is looking to a future outside of basketball. And then I thought, and I still think, where does DeWanna want to end that career, right? She won a championship in Phoenix. She racked up on accolades in Phoenix. She did a lot of record setting in Connecticut, but Phoenix was always home for her. And I remember asking her specifically, when she came to Connecticut, she said, I wanted to come to a place where I could make something my own, where I could say, I did that. This was my team, blah, blah, blah. And I've always thought that that was commendable. And I think that she did everything she could possibly do for the Connecticut Sun. She put her game on the line, her body on the line. I mean, 36, 37 years old and plays phenomenally. She removed herself from the starting position just this past postseason just to give another player the opportunity because we wanted to win. That was her mentality. I'm willing to do what I need to do to win. So if she does decide to move on from Connecticut, nobody can be mad. She did exactly what she said she was going to do, which is make it her own, which was do her best to bring a championship to Connecticut. And although that part of the goal did not come to fruition, there's nothing you can say DeWanna didn't give for the Connecticut Sun. So yeah, I think for me, that was a given. It was the Alyssa piece that I was just kind of like, maybe, maybe she
Right.
stays, maybe she doesn't. That was the piece. And then now when you're looking at the remainder of the team, I feel like I said this before, I feel like DeJounte Carrington is a great core piece to have. I feel like it is not a crime, nor is it a bad idea to build around someone of her talent because she has so much flexibility. You can go in various different angles. She can play the post well, but she's also, as you know, her main position is a guard. She can bring the ball up the floor. Her defense is immaculate. Like there are so many avenues that you can build around a player like DeJounte Carrington. But this isn't a team that is starting fresh with just players on the court. This is also a team starting fresh with a new coach. So this could be beneficial in a way. This is just me trying to provide a bright side here, that this could be beneficial as it gives the coach an opportunity to bring in new players, have a fresh start to implement whatever it is that he wanted to implement, fast-paced upstyle basketball, which is what he said multiple times, that he wants to play fast, wants to get up and down the court. So this gives him an opportunity to get some younger players that may be able to execute that style of basketball. So it may not, I don't know if we'll see the perennial playoff team that we've seen in the past, but there's still so much time in free agency. We don't know who gonna go where and who may consider coming to Connecticut.
Yeah, seems like there's still many questions to be answered. I have to say though, losing your franchise star in Alyssa Thomas, I'm sure is putting some pressure on the Sun because even if you keep everything else you have now and you do, like you mentioned, have some with Natasha Cloud coming in and who's still left in Connecticut with Bree Jones and DeJounte, you have some solid pieces there, even if DeWanna Bonner moves on. But I don't know if there's someone else. Connecticut Sun wasn't one of the teams that Satu Sabli was going to be meeting with. Kelsey Mitchell just re-upped with Indiana. And so it doesn't seem like there's another piece to bring in right now as like a star. So what would this team be? What could they be? Unless somehow Emma Meeseman is going to be like returning. I know that's been like floating out there too. So I guess when I say it puts pressure, because it seems like the facilities were a driving factor, likely, and I'm sure we'll hear more from Alyssa at some point, but it seems like the facilities were probably a motivating factor in part of her decision to move on. And I don't think that's going to stop like that pressure. We're seeing Chicago's adding a facility. We know that Phoenix just did something, they just added new facilities. So everyone is adding facilities. We know like Aces landed Jewel Lloyd. They already have facilities, right? Like Seattle, right? Like, so this, I think, is putting pressure on Connecticut, and I wonder what they're going to do about that.
Even Dallas is moving to a bigger venue, so the access is different. It just seems like all of these teams are making different moves to improve the player experience. And again, I can't say Connecticut hasn't or doesn't want to do that, but they have not publicly yet expressed that they have the ability to either build a new facility or consider moving locations. I mean, I don't want to bring that up as in like, oh, they, about to go to another place, but they play in Uncasville, Connecticut, which is 45 minutes away from the capital city in Hartford. And there's different access in the city of Hartford than there is in Uncasville. So when you talk about wanting to bring in big name free agents and wanting to attract them, they are obviously going to want to know, what does this place have to offer me? And it's very difficult to sell Uncasville, which
Right.
it may be a little bit easier to sell a place like Hartford, so there's a lot to consider there. But yeah,
We also saw Dejanay Carrington early in the season tweet, like when it was announced that their game was going to be in Boston, that there was going to be another game in Boston again for the Sun. She's like, or she said something around, I don't want to misquote her, but like I'm paraphrasing a little, but something around like maybe just move the organization or the team to Boston or something along those lines.
I will never agree with that.
That's fine, but my
my
point is more about the thinking of the players.
Yes.
Who you actually have. Like if she's saying this, that means where they're located is a thing for her and she's one of your current players. So it's, for me, it's less about like if I think it's good or if they should or if they shouldn't, but like the players who are playing for you right now, it matters to them.
Location
and so so lots of questions ahead for the Connecticut Sun, but I know that you will continue to keep us tapped in. So appreciate you, Terrika, for joining me today. I saw you were like on air last night. Like everyone is trying to react to this WNBA free agency frenzy. So yeah, I'm just very curious. This is one last thing. I'm just very curious. You've been here for a long time. When I say here, I mean in this WNBA space. Have you seen a free agency like this before?
I have never seen a free agency like this, but I credit all of this back to Candace Parker. When Candace Parker left LA in 2021 and head to Chicago, I think that was when the mold was starting to break, when we were really starting to see like, oh, players are about to take, and mind you, this was under the then new 2020 CBA, right? And so this was something where it was just like, whoa, we are shocked to see a name like this. Like we had seen moves, right? Like we had seen Sylvia Fowles leave Chicago and go to Minnesota. We've seen Elena Deladon leave Chicago and go to Washington. There's a pattern here, if you notice, about people leaving Chicago, but neither here nor there. So we had seen those moves, but it didn't give the feel of like Candace Parker taking free agency to say, I'm about to move to Chicago. And then I think when she did that, it opened the door. The door burst open, I think, the year after when she went to, not the year after, excuse me, a couple of years later when she went to Las Vegas, and then New York made the decision to add a Stewie and a Jonquil Jones and a Courtney Vandersloot. It started to feel like, wow, like now free agency is starting to feel like free agency because we've been spoiled. We've been spoiled by NBA free agency. NBA free agency makes us feel like these big names have maximum options. We had never been spoiled like that in the WNBA before. And so it is becoming more common. And I think this year was really a year where we could see some blockbuster moves because folks just really want to get this one last year out of the way before 2026 comes and they can really do some incredible signings. So this next cycle is about to be fun between the draft and then what happens in the off season. This cycle is about to be fun. I don't even think this is going to be the most surprising free agency. I think next year's free agency is where we're going to be like, what?
Can't wait. All right, Terrika, thank you so much for joining today. I appreciate you.
For sure.